Hi, Tony. Welcome to GPS 2025. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
So just to start with a first question, your career, as we know, spans across novels, TV, comics,
Mhm.
and even audio dramas. As a writer and publisher, what do you think are the key differences in writing for different formats, and how do you approach each one creatively?
Um, it's a weird question in a way because I talk to a lot of screenwriters who write novels, and there's no differences. But as a comic writer, I feel that writing comics made me a better writer than anything else. Because if I'm writing a novel, it can be as long as I want, as short as I want. I can write 100,000 words, 20,000 words. Every chapter can be whatever it wants. But when you're writing a comic, it's a set real estate. So a comic is, say, 22 pages. You can't do 23, you can't go 21. You have to work to their restrictions. And this teaches you very much how to compress when you're writing. So you can't just go off on a long conversation. You have to make sure it fits each panel. But also, if you have a reveal, a big surprise, in a book, it can be anywhere because you read that book line by line. And when you turn that page, you just see a mass of words. But with a comic, if you turn the page, that image is there. And even if you're scanning up, you will still see that image. So you learn that a big surprise has to be on the left-hand page. So from the very beginning, when you're writing comics, you are constantly making a negotiation with yourself on what goes first, what loses, what gains. And it teaches you an efficiency of story that no other medium, I think, gives. Because even if you're writing a 35-minute TV show and you know it's exactly this amount of time, well, that's the director, that's the editor. They all make it that length. You are the only person who does that in a comic. And that, I think, is what made me a better writer, so to speak, because I still think that as I'm writing.
Absolutely. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, with your digital first publishing company, Hooded Man Media, you've had a front row seat to the changing landscape of publishing. How do you see the future of traditional versus digital publishing evolving, and what advice would you give new authors trying to navigate both?
It's a tough one because I've been professionally writing since 1986. And since then, I was 16 years old and doing games reviews, but the publishing was the same. And in that time, I've seen computers take over. When I first started writing, you would go to a writer's room and there were typewriters all around the room because you were typing and sending it in. The first comic creators I know were sending faxes to their editors in America. And now it's such a global, instantaneous market. Stories become quicker, everything becomes faster. And I think traditional media is learning to its... There's a lot of chagrin here, but I think traditional media is learning to its disadvantage that it's slower than everybody else. And the audience now wants more content. And what traditional media is doing is they're going, we can give you more authors for your content. Whereas what the actual readers want is they want more content from that author. So I can write a book and publish it and have it out to that reader in a matter of months, whereas traditional media is a matter of years. And I think traditional media is going to have to learn how to catch up, so to speak. And it is, don't get me wrong, a lot of big publishers have now media, digital-only media groups. Hachette has a media imprint that is only ebooks and things like that. And they're getting that. But at the same time, they're still going in with the mentality of a traditional publisher. So they're walking into a market where everybody, say, for example, everyone's charging, I don't know, €5 a book. And they'll walk in and go, here's our book. It's just like those, but it's 8. And the market isn't about, if you're gonna walk into the same room as somebody, you have to make sure you're matching everything they're doing. And traditional have to learn how that works. And they do to an extent. And I'm noticing a lot of traditional marketing companies, so a lot of traditional publishers are bringing in independent specialists to join their teams to go, you need to be working faster, you need to be doing this. And as an independent publisher who works primarily with Amazon and the speed they can go, we are in a situation where if we have an error, we can fix it that next day. Traditional can't. So it's double, but at the same time, most digital publishers will stay with someone like Amazon because it's the easiest and biggest game in town. But traditional media can play with the other areas. And I think there'll be a definite push for things like Kobo or other areas like that. The brick and mortar stores, I think, will get a bit of a push towards stopping independent publishers coming through, or it will just turn the other way and traditional publishers will try to be independent.
Interesting. So very interesting. Well, moving on to, we know that you've written for major franchises like Doctor Who, Star Trek, and Spider-Man. What advice do you have for writers working within established universes? How do they balance respecting canon while still injecting their own unique voices into the story?
When you are writing someone else's work, it is the same as you have been given a toy box. You're a small child, you're given a toy box, and they say to you, you can play with whatever toys you want. You can do whatever you want. You can throw these toys around, but when you finish, the same toys need to be in that box. You can't break the toys. And that's the biggest thing I can say to anybody who wants to write in a franchise is don't break the toys. You can do what you want with those toys, but those toys have to be the same when the next person comes to play with them. And I remember a comic writer who once had a pitch for a Superman comic where Superman loses an arm. And there was a big story about, how does Superman, who's invulnerable, suddenly deal with the fact he loses an arm? How does he convince people that Clark Kent isn't him when Clark Kent has also lost an arm? All these things happen. And all the editors said was, this sounds amazing. How does he get it back? And the writer was, he doesn't. He's lost an arm. This is an ongoing thing. And they looked at him and went, no, because the movies will need to have two arms and the toys will have two arms. So how do we do that? So when we were looking at Doctor Who, for example, we knew that it was a companion that was in the TV shows and stuff like that. There's no scaredness to it. There's no drama because you're like, oh no, will the Doctor's companion survive? Yes, she will. So we contacted Russell T Davies, who at the time was the showrunner. He is again now, but at the time he was. And we said, can we have new companions? Can we have two completely different comic-only companions? And the reason was because we knew that if we did, we could kill them if we wanted. We could do things to them, and we did. We've given these new companions, and by the end of it, they were still as they were when they started because you don't want to break the toy box. But so going back to the original thing is, if you are given a license or a franchise and somebody wants you to do something, you can go crazy. I mean, you can really throw everything at it, as long as you can find a very valid reason why at the end the status quo is exactly the same.
Super interesting. I love the toy box analogy in Superman example. As a successful author under the pen name Jack Gatlin, you've amazed millions of page readers. What do you believe are the key factors behind achieving such success in a modern publishing world, and how can writers build an audience from the ground up?
I think the advantage I had was, obviously genre is an important thing. If you're writing a genre you enjoy and the audience enjoys it. I started writing crime novels, and I found I was really working hard on what the crime was, how the twists and turns occurred. And I learned probably about 6 books in that my readers don't care. They don't care who dies. They don't care how they did it. They don't care what happens. They want to see the team that's solving it and how their personalities are progressing, how their conversations are going. In my series, and it's just a spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen the books, I have my main character, Detective Inspector Declan Walsh, becomes Detective Chief Inspector as the time goes on. He has an assistant, or his partner is Detective Sergeant at the time, but now becomes Detective Inspector, Anjali Kapoor, who's an Indian lady who they start off as kind of just partners, but they become in a relationship. And I put a post up saying, oh, my next book is going to change the life of one of the team forever. And I actually had someone send me an email and say, you'd better not be breaking up Declanjali. And I was like, oh my God, they have a name. And I checked and they're all talking about Declanjali. And it's like Benifer or the other terms that you get, Brangelina. And I'm just like, oh my God, they were so invested in these characters. And that's what I think. If you're writing and you want to build this, you want to build characters that people believe in, they understand, and they can relate to.
Absolutely.
And I think writing comics helped me with that. Because you have to learn very quickly how do you make a character relatable. And I come from screenplays as well. They have a term called save the cat, which is when you have a movie, you need to have someone the audience need to like them within 20 seconds. In the same way that if you meet someone for the first time, you only get 20 seconds before you think, oh, I don't like you. So save the cat is the term. You know, if you don't know if that person's good or bad, but he saves a cat, then you go, oh, well, he's a nice person. You know, it could be he phones his mum and they go, oh, well, he phones his mum, he's a nice person. Or, you know, he does something, he saves a kid from running over. The Disney's Aladdin, the cartoon. The first scene, Aladdin is a thief. He's stealing bread. He has this massive thing. But at the end, he gives the bread to some children. Save the cat. It's making the audience relate to that person and go, yes, I can see that. Means they will then be invested in that person and want to see what happens in that person's journey.
Oh, fascinating. Well, at Hooded Man Media, you've been instrumental in launching many projects, including the Caliburn Prize. What's the most fulfilling aspect of mentoring or supporting emerging writers, and how do you think publishers can better support new talent in today's competitive market?
I think publishers need to support as many as possible. The Caliburn Prize we've changed it. We're trying to find a different way to do it. I worked as a comic writer for over 20 years, and I see so many. I run the comic zone of the London Film and Comic Con, and I see so many new creators turning up, and they're not getting the same advantages that I had. Because comics is constantly changing. This is another industry that's having problems working out how to sell. So you have these people who are unpublished and want to write comics, but they don't know how to do it. And I find the Caliburn Prize was created as a prize, of like a prize fund of about £2,500 that would be given to the winner of a contest that was judged by people in the industry, for them to then go on and use that money to finish the book. But also we gave them, mentorship with people like Oriana Lecker from Kickstart. They had a table at the convention. They got all the marketing. So it wasn't just about giving money. It was about showing them, this is how you can go. This is how you can move forward. And I think new writers, and I was a new writer. Now everybody's a new writer at some point. If you're not showing them what they can do and all they see are gatekeepers stopping you, then they're not going to want to do it. And they'll fall into either bad habits or they'll fall into bad areas. And there are publishers out there who will say, hey, I'll publish your work, and then you never make a penny. I don't do that. I had a writer who actually, we published with Hooded Man Media her first 3 books. We didn't take a penny. We didn't do anything. We made sure that we covered the costs of it, the covers, the setting, everything, purely because we wanted her to get her first 3 books going. And then as soon as that was done, she then took the books, put it into her side, and we moved on. There's a writer called Robert Rankin, who 40 years ago, I know I'm going off a little bit, I apologize.
Oh, no, please keep going.
There's a writer called Robert Rankin who 40 years ago was writing these comedy books like Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett actually said, this guy is the funniest person I've read. And when I was 20, and I talk about this a lot, and you can find it online, when I was 20, I was paralyzed. 21, I was paralyzed. And I was in hospital for weeks. And the only thing that kept me sane was I found there was a copy of this book called Armageddon the Musical. And I read this book while I was in hospital, and it just kept me sane while I was just getting my motorship back. And I got to know Robert here and there. And about 2 years ago, I found he was having problems with the ebooks. They weren't selling. And so we said to him, we'll do your books. And so we're now redoing all of Robert Rankin's ebooks. We're not charging him. In fact, I've paid thousands out to get these done properly, but I want them done because I want people to read those books. I want people to enjoy it. It's not about making money. It's about providing a readership enjoyment factor that people don't often get. And if I can help in any way somebody understand the next stage, well, absolutely. But then that's everything. I mean, I go to reluctant readers at schools and talk to them about how when I was a kid, I was a reluctant reader, because if one of those kids picks up a book, my job is done. If one of those writers I sit down with publishes a book, my job is done. And I've had kids come up to me years later at conventions, and they're now writing comics. They're now writing novels, which of course means they're now rivals and I must kill them. But it's to see that. I could stop tomorrow.
Absolutely.
My job is done.
Well, I'm sure the mentorship and knowing that the right reasons are behind what you do is really what makes it. Well, on another note, you've adapted works from other authors like
Yes.
Anthony Horowitz and Amanda Hawking.
Yeah.
What do you think makes for a successful adaptation, and how do you ensure the essence of the original work is still preserved while making it accessible for new audiences? So kind of similar to the past question.
It is. I mean, the thing with novels is I've adapted novels into screenplays and I've adapted them into comics, and they are again two different things. If you've got a novel, Anthony Horowitz's ones are quite simple because they were for books. My biggest problem I had is I did Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is Seth Graham Greene. And a lot of that is Pride and Prejudice. So you're trying to work out how to write the book in a particular way that does this. But you'll have an entire page of a scene of a gala or a ball. And it's literally 2 pages of dialogue, a description of how it looks. And that'll be done in a panel. So suddenly you're like, oh, actually, well, that's gone. But then you'll have a conversation between 2 people, which needs to be in the book because it's an important conversation. But if you sit down and look at it, that's a 7-page scene. So you have to learn to fight your battles. You have to work out what gets kept, what can be cut down, what can be removed. And again, it's a screenplay thing. Is I've done scenes where I've tried to work something out, and the director's looked at me and read it and gone, "I can do that in a look." And it's like, done, move it. It's just kind of seeing how to play that. But again, a lot of people, if you watch a lot of adaptations, my biggest complaint is you go, this is not the book I read. This film is nothing like it. And the chances are because 1, they couldn't do the book, or 2, the director, the actor, the editor, the producer, they all had a different idea. All you can do is the best job that you can do. And if anybody is doing an adaptation in any type, watch the movie adaptation, because it's a Nicolas Cage movie, and it was actually about a guy who was hired to adapt a book. Couldn't work out how to do it, so wrote a script about him having to work out how to adapt the book.
Wow.
And it's Charlie Kaufman, and it's an amazing book, but it's absolutely true while not being true.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there are many ways to adapt a book, but only one way to feel that you've adapted the book.
Definitely. I'll have to check the adaptation movie out. It sounds great. Many writers today are exploring self-publishing or hybrid publishing models. From your experience as both a writer and a publisher, what do you think are the most important factors for success in this space, and what pitfalls should authors be aware of?
So I spoke about this today, and it's one thing I learned. I spent 34 years as a professional writer for traditional media, be it TV, film, comics, books, whatever. And as a writer for traditional media, you write your book, you pass it on, and 9 times out of 10, you never see that again. It's gone to somebody else, and there's another stage, an artist is doing it, or something else is happening. As a self-published writer, you're constantly working on that project. But the market I see is, and I saw this today, there's a lot of people who go, I'm a self-published writer. I work in self-publishing, so therefore I am a writer and I publish my books, which is great. But I'm not. I had to twist that mindset, and I say I'm a publisher who writes. Because when you're writing a book, self-publishing, a lot of people, if you're thinking I'm a writer who publishes, the book is the key thing. And to an extent, the book needs to be the key thing. But when you're self-publishing, you're a business. So when I publish a book, I have about 25 stages that I need to go through before that book comes out. You have to think of how the cover's going to look, the title. You have to create an Amazon page, a link for that Amazon page. You have to set the book, edit the book, have beta readers on the book. You have to release the book, all these things. Only one of these 25 lines of things that have to be done is write the book. It's a big thing, but it's only one line. So when you step back and look at the project rather than the novel, you realize that you can relax a bit more on what the book is. And you can relax a bit more, because people always try for the 5-star book. People who are self-publishing think, I need to write a 5-star book. Why? And I'm not saying that flippantly. The Great Gatsby on Amazon is 3.83. Because you'll never have a 5-star book, because all it takes is someone to write a review. My book turned up, the Amazon delivery driver left it in the rain, it got wet, 1 star. Your book will now never be a 5-star book. Nothing to do with you. People want to read 3-star books because a 3-star book is out. A 5-star book is still draft 27 and it's on your computer and it has not been seen. And a book on your laptop is never going to be seen by somebody else. So for me, I look at it as what the self-publishing side of it has to be a business. It has to be, you have to have a moment where you can go, it's good enough to put aside, and you can always go back and revise it at any point.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'd read something that you'd said about the reviews, about like you want to aim for a 3-star, and like those are the ones that really matter. Those people that kind of give them.
I mean, a 5-star. People who have loads of 5-star reviews are either people who have friends,
right,
or they have a niche market that is so niche to it that's where they get them. Non-fiction books often get 5-star reviews and things like that. 1-star reviews are people who either really hated it, didn't want to read it, picked the wrong book up, which is that's a marketing issue.
Right.
But if you're getting loads of people going, this is not the book I thought it was, why are they not realizing it's the right book? Also, you get a lot of bad actors and other writers who are doing this deliberately. I've had books that have literally been 1-star the day it came out, like within half an hour of release, 1-star review. And there's no way that person read that book.
Right.
It's a common thing. You get this, and it's a pain. But when you look at it and you look at 1-star reviews and they're rubbish. I mean that in a bad way. People just go, no, if 1 or 2 might be worth looking at, but a lot of time it's, no, it wasn't. My most common one is, he used the Lord's name in vain. Because one of my characters is Scottish, and you'll go, oh Christ, what's going on? Bam, 1-star.
Oh, wow.
Simple as that. So I kind of avoid those. One of them is 5-star reviews, like, oh, this is the best book ever, but that person's saying that on every book I've written for like the last 5. They love my books, great. That's not the target market. The 3-star, 4-star people are the ones who are like, oh, it was quite good. I quite like this. I will probably try again. That's the book that's the review I'm going to read.
Right.
Because that's the person who's taken their time to write a review, who wasn't massively fast, but they'll still read the book.
Put the thought into it.
Yeah, because 50% of people who read book 1 will read book 2. 80% will read book 3. 90% will read book 4. They won't care about the reviews.
Right.
If they like the book, they like the book.
Exactly. Well, I'd love to hear more about your collaborations with musicians like Ozzy Osbourne and Iron Maiden. Have brought a unique dimension to your writing, and how you approach writing from that non-traditional media or working with artists from other industries, as well as what lessons can writers learn from such cross-media collaborations.
So I've been very lucky. I mean, I grew up loving bands like Iron Maiden and Metallica, stuff like that. And I worked for Heavy Metal magazine in 2018, 2019. And they were doing projects with Megadeth, with Ozzy Osbourne, and I was offered a chance to write stories with them and things like that. And so I was doing 1 or 2 bits and pieces. I did a story for Pantera, I did a story for Megadeth, but they were just stories. And then a couple of years ago, the main editor of Heavy Metal moved across to a company called Z2. It's Z2 in the UK, but it's Z2 in America. And they'd done a deal with Iron Maiden. Now, I'm a massive Iron Maiden fan. I mean, I was at college, and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son had come out. I was listening to it all the time, and they said, oh, Bruce Dickinson, he's a polymath anyway, he does everything. He wants to write a script for this 40th anniversary Iron Maiden comic, but he needs a writer who can do it. And it was very surreal. He was in Los Angeles for a few days, and I happened to be in Los Angeles doing meetings at the same time, so we were able to have a meeting. And we got on like a house on fire, but I was so starstruck. I'll be absolutely honest, I was blown away. But the thing I had on my advantage is I'd seen him live in 1997 at a gig where nobody else was there because it'd be a cancelled gig, and I was able to mention this, which showed I had my bona fides. I wasn't just some crazy person.
You're certified.
But also because of what I do with Hooded Man, I didn't care what I was paid to do the job. I would do it for fun. And the editors are friends and stuff like that. So when we talked about, why do you want to do this? And I said, look, have you seen me ask how much? I want to do this because it sounds like it's a fun project. And he's very much a William Blake fan. I'm a William Blake fan. He's very much into John Dee, the Elizabethan magician, and I wrote books about John Dee. So we were having a really intense discussion. And then he said, I've got another idea for a story called The Mandrake Project. It's a 12-part maxi series book. And he had spoken to the publishers about it, and they were very excited. And we spent an hour discussing it. And Bruce then went, yeah, I want him to do the book. And it's been insane. I'll be genuinely, I've never had anything like this, because Bruce he writes everything down on paper. He's got the story worked out. He's very, very plotted. He knows where it's going. The story is insane. But the problem is Bruce is also a touring musician. So in the time that I've been writing this with him, he's released an album. He's been on tour with Iron Maiden. He's done another tour on himself. He's now touring North America with Iron Maiden. He's about to do another tour with himself. He's already writing the next album, and he's finding time to sit down with me and go, right, let's work out the next book. And I think we've done 7 of the 12 so far. We're working on 8. And his mind just works in such a way that you just look and go, how does that go? We're doing an entire comic that's effectively in a Disney style, but it's Bruce Dickinson's mind in Disney style. And if anything's ever going to get me cancelled, it will be this comic, because it's crazy. And I have to take that and turn it into something that the artist, Peter, who's very straight lined, he can actually look at this and go, oh, I see how this works. But it's incredible, and I'm living the dream. I mean, I literally sit in this rock star hotel with him, going through things, and then he'll go, oh, that banging noise, that's Nico McBrain. He's trying the drums downstairs. Do you want to go listen? Yes. So we'll go downstairs, and then there'll be an hour where Bruce is drumming and Nico's drumming, and do you want to drum? And I'm like, no. And it's just incredibly surreal. But at the same time, though, as I said, there's actresses I've done books with, there's rock stars I've done book with, princesses I've done books with. They're all the same, really. They have a story they want to tell, and I can provide them a way of doing it. How the story is worked out is where it changes. But I mean, I'm just going to keep doing this until he stops me. Until somebody says we're not doing any more books, I'm just going to keep going. This is great.
Absolutely.
It's the only comic I'm currently doing for hire at the moment, because I don't need to, and I'm doing it for fun.
Well, I would love to hear just overall how your experience at GPS 2025 has been so far for you.
It's great. I mean, I did last year, and the location it was at was wonderful. It was very surreal doing a talk in front of a giant screen, because obviously it's a cinema screen. But this is incredible, and I think this, for me, is a far better place to do it, because as a writer, you are an explorer. You discover your books. You have to create this world that you're circumnavigating. And this is the place where Magellan started his roots. This is where Columbus, started his journeys. This is a place of history, and we're sitting in, the wall just past this here is the actual wall. You go through there, you've got the areas. This is, the room, I think, where Magellan did his talk, did the planning, is like next door. This is where explorers went, and anybody who wants to get involved in this industry, something like this is amazing, because it just inspires you. And I think with GPS, it is different, because as you progress through the levels, you find certain things work in different ways. So the talks are great if you're starting off, but for someone like me, I've seen the talks, I know the talks. But sitting out here and talking to other authors, you're getting their experience in certain things. They might be using a particular software that you've never used. They might have a different marketing strategy you've never seen. Every time I come back from a convention, be it Madrid, be it Vegas, be it Seville, both times, I'm inspired, and I want to start writing more straight away. In fact, I'll be on the plane tonight writing, because it inspires you to do it. And anything that can take a writer who writes on their own, effectively in a room with no one around, to get them to go, oh my God, I want to do more of that. That can only be a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, kind of tagging onto this, and the last question I have is, what do you think about organizing events like this, where top authors share their strategies?
So, as I said, I run a comic convention in London, so I've seen the other side of this. I know the nightmares that can run it. And it's a weird one, because I asked during my talk, I sort of said to them, how many have just started, how many are doing books? It's a 50-50 split between people who are making 6 figures and 50 people who have just started. And they are two sides of a massive line. If I'm doing a talk where people who have just started are learning, the people who are learning that information are not caring if they're this end. But if you're talking to these people are just going, nothing for me. And it becomes very difficult. And SPS has had this problem. We've had this problem. 20 Books had this problem. I think it's best you find it. So, for example, a week ago, I was in Aruba at an author conference of 6 to 7 figure authors. And that was a room filled with people who are making millions, who were going, okay, so what's next? What's next? How does this work? That's the conference they go to. It's Davos for writers. on the other side, you've got Seville, you've got SPS, people who are going, hey, you want to do this? You can do this, and let me show you how to do this. And I think as an organizer, you're never gonna make everybody happy all the time. So what you have to provide is enough things for the bigger people to be able to do while the newer people are learning, and for the newer people to have breaks when other things are kicking in. Making sure you can bring in people, and I'm not saying people like me, but people like Steve Higgs, Luke, me, Rachel McLean, who couldn't make it, people with the experience, and have them sitting in a room like this and going, hey, I'm here to talk to you. What can I help you with? I mean, Steve Higgs, I've not seen him outside of his talks without a laptop in his hand, showing people how to do stuff. We are not rivals, and this is the biggest thing I have to point out. I come from screenwriting and comic writing and stuff like that, and Tom Donnelly, who's a screenwriter, said it the best way. He said, in America, if you're a screenwriter, you are literally having a knife fight in a phone booth. But indie writers are the Smurfs. It's Smurf Village, because you all love each other, and we will all help each other, and we will all make each other rise. Because if I get everybody here to make 6 figures a year, great. It doesn't affect my money at all.
Right.
But more people going up means the industry changes, and the traditional publishers have to take notice of it. My rival is Netflix, because if someone's watching Netflix, they're not reading a book. So I need to make sure people stay reading. And if, I don't know, Deanie Ray, who's a cozy crime author, she releases another book and people read that book, well, then they might then look at my next book. They're going to stay in the market.
Right.
So running a conference, you kind of have to do all things. The biggest thing, though, is to make sure you get the right sponsors. And Seville do this great. I mean, Darren Hardy is the next person to be interviewed. He's one of the main guys at Amazon. So many people will come here just to meet Darren, because Amazon is this faceless void, but Darren is a contact. He's a person you can go to and say, how's this going on? How's that happening? And having a chance to sit down with Darren face to face, having a chance to sit down with the guys from Book Vault face to face, that's worth more than the convention entrance alone. And then you also get to learn stuff and network and things like that. These things need to continue.
Absolutely.
Whether it's in Ireland, whether it's in England, whether it's in America, it doesn't matter. These things need to continue.
That's great. Thank you for your time. I don't know if
Thank you
you're in a
very
rush. I would love to ask one question personally, if that's
Yes.
okay. Okay, so with movies, you see like actors, they have to like prepare so much to get in the character.
Yes.
And they spend so much time, and like some of them take very drastic measures. With like the adaptations that you've done, is there a lot of studying or like preparation before you then sit down
Oh, yeah.
to write with them?
Yeah, because as
How
I
does
said,
that
with
work?
say for example with comics, you've got a book that is this long, and you've only got 144 pages to put it into. I mean, 144 pages sounds not many, but then if you've got 5 or maybe 6 panels a page, that is a panel, and a page is that. That's not long.
Right.
You've got 120 of those per comic, so maybe 500 of those in total in a book. How do you take this this 100,000 word book and turn it into a comic? So, and I talk a lot of people about this, and I say, James Bond's walking down a corridor of a hotel, and we don't care what he's done before, we don't care what he does afterwards, but he's walking down a corridor, he goes to his room, he sees his room is been opened, we don't care how, but he notices it, goes into his room, gun out, room's empty, bedroom's empty, he sees his bathroom door is closed. Maybe earlier on we saw that it wasn't. He then kicks in the door. You're now like in the bath staring at the door as he kicks the door, and he's shocked to what he sees, and then it cuts. You don't even see what he sees. So you've got a scene where he's walking down the corridor, sees the door, goes through, looks in the room, looks in the bedroom, kicks the door, shocked. If that's a film, that's, I don't know, maybe a minute of film. If that's a book, it's maybe a page tops. But if it's a film and you've used a minute, that's 1% of a 100-minute film. If you've done 1 page of a book, that's probably 0.3% of the book. As a comic, how many panels does that scene take? Is it a 2-page scene? Is it a 1-page scene? The percentage is what happens. So you have to look at your scenes and go, okay, this is a very talky scene, but it's important. So that's going to be a bigger scene than this one. And it's, as I said earlier on with I can do it in a look. An artist can turn and say, I can do this entire section in 1 panel by doing this. And that will cut things out. So you have to look at your book and just edit it. You have to break it down into scenes, break those scenes down into pages, break those pages down into panels. You need to do it as a screenplay. You're taking the book, you're breaking it into scenes, you're breaking it down into dialogue, you're breaking it down into blocking. And then you start. It's completely backwards.
It's very interesting. Well, thank you for answering. I was just curious.
Thank you for asking. No,
Yes,
fine.
absolutely. I don't think